excited to be here today, and I wish I could see you face to face, but this will be nice to be able to share with you about co-teaching, which is an evidence-based practice. So I'm going to talk you through today some different models of co-teaching that we've used throughout the years. But first, a little bit about myself. I have been at Cal State Fullerton in the Department of Special Education since 2001. I've been the department chair of special education since 2007. And before that time, I was at Cal Poly Pomona for 3 years. So my research areas really focus on teacher training, affective characteristics such as social skills, self-concept, and loneliness, mostly in adolescents with mild, moderate disabilities. And that means affective, not effective, as well as evidence-based best practices in literacy. So this particular webinar is focusing on teacher training, which is an evidence-based best practice. And so that's what we'll be talking about today. Before this time that I've been at the university level, I taught for 8 years in 2 different school districts for elementary, middle school, and high school. And I have worked in schools consistently since 1990 as a consultant, leading professional development workshops, supporting teachers, and conducting research. And I've always loved my time in the schools, and I'm in schools now about once a week, not during the pandemic time, but usually about once a week. And if I can get into schools twice a week, that makes my life even happier. I love to be in schools. My goal eventually is to take a sabbatical and go work in a school in a rural village somewhere and just really get in and work alongside teachers and learn from them and learn some best practices in some schools that have had challenges with a lot of at-risk students. That's a goal of mine in the very near future. I have 3 children, one who's in grad school in Cincinnati, Ohio, one who is in college in Oregon, and one who is in high school. I also have a host daughter who's in college in Santa Barbara, and she's from Rwanda. She's absolutely wonderful and has taught me so much. And I've also had 15 foster children who have been in and out of my home. So these are all my guinea pigs for teaching and learning and best practices as a teacher. So let's get started and talk a little bit. Normally we would be doing introductions, but I just did mine to you. We're going to talk about the definition of co-teaching. We're going to talk about benefits of co-teaching, strategies of co-teaching, and then we'll summarize at the very end. So co-teaching really is an attitude, and it's really an attitude of sharing the classroom and students. And co-teachers are always thinking, and they must always be thinking, that we're both teaching. 2 people are there with equivalent roles supporting students in the classroom. Now, co-teaching has had different watered down definitions, but in the field of special education, co-teaching means a general education teacher and a special education teacher working alongside each other to support all students in the classroom. So the special education teacher is not just helping the students who've been identified as having a disability, but they're helping all of the students in the classroom as needed. So the teachers might reverse roles sometimes. Obviously, the general ed teacher is the content area expert, and the special ed teacher is the intervention and strategies expert. But of course, these lines can be crossed. And so these teachers can work together and determine their best strengths and abilities to best support all of the student needs in the classroom. So we're going to look at the benefits of co-teaching next. And really, we know that the data really talks. So we did an end of experience survey recently with 279 students, and teachers indicated that co-teaching really led to the ability to reach more students, particularly those with high needs. So that was 93.5% of the respondents, which is a huge number. that co-teaching led to better relationships with other teachers, which of course is true. It'd be a lot more fun to get to work with someone and run ideas off of each other and collaborate together. That was 91% of the sample size, which was 279 teachers. 89.2% of the teachers said that they experienced professional growth as a result of this opportunity to co-teach. The teachers also said that they had an enhanced energy for teaching. So 87.8% said that they had more energy because they were getting to work alongside another teacher. 87.1% said that they enjoyed sharing students without having to give up the classroom. So in our focus groups, we surveyed 92 teachers, and we found that there were additional benefits of co-teaching, that they said they had the ability to do projects more successfully, so more time and more completion, higher completion rates, that class time was more productive, modeling and participating in teamwork. So they were really able to show the students what collaboration looks like and what it means to be patient with another person and to learn from one another. They felt that they were able to give more support and success to all students. So when people were asked, 546 participants were asked what the benefits to students of all grade ranges from kindergarten to senior year, they felt that there was increased student engaged time. So students were able to work in smaller groups. They got more attention from different teachers. They felt like they could have their questions answered faster, and they got their grades back faster. So that feedback would improve their grades over time as well. They knew right away what they were doing wrong or what they would need to adjust. Students behaved better with 2 adults in the room. There were fewer class disruptions for things such as passing out papers or having their projects checked off or other housekeeping tasks. So there are a lot of benefits to K-12 students. And then what about our students with disabilities? What were some of the benefits for those students? So they felt like there was less stigma and labeling. So if the teachers were collaborating together and determining how they could help kids, they were focusing on helping everyone and not just those with disabilities. So they felt less pointed out within a classroom. They had improved self-esteem and self-confidence by getting to be part of the general ed classroom. They had improved social skills because they were able to see appropriate social skills modeled, and they were able to utilize their skills. They were less frustrated, so their behaviors were probably naturally showing as better. They had improved peer relationships, better performance in general ed settings than in special ed settings. They actually did better. They had more support and more strong models to learn from. They had an increased understanding that other students, not just kids in their small special education setting, also had difficulty learning new concepts. So they felt like they weren't alone anymore with the difficulty of class sometimes. They also noticed that their benefits for students with disabilities is that there's less disruption from being pulled out of classrooms, and thus they improved their intensity and continuity of special education services. So there was less time wasted and more focus on content and actually learning those skills. What about the benefits for students without disabilities? This has been a point of interest for a long time, especially parents saying, I want my kids to be with the highest level students. And what students without disabilities found is that they had increased time for individualized attention because they had 2 teachers in that classroom supporting them. High achieving students could get more individualized attention and enrichment. So low achieving and high achieving had more attention, more focus on them. There was increased teacher time and assistance for student monitoring, for individual assistance, for student conferences, for providing enrichment activities or for reteaching a lesson, and for guided practice activities. So students from kindergarten to 12th grade had some comments for us so we could learn from them. So one elementary student said they work together. If one gets tired of teaching, the other takes over. They help each other in tight situations. It's a lot different than past student teachers, and I like this much better. So this particular student was commenting on a special education student teacher that was collaborating with a general education student teacher in that classroom. Another elementary student said, I think we learn more because there are two different teachers in the room, which means they teach different ways, which means they know different facts, which means you're going to learn a lot more. A middle school student said, double the teachers, double the learning. And a high school student said, while one is teaching, the other comes around and asks if we need help. It makes it easier to get around to everybody. And one final thought was when the teacher's talking or teaching, the other one can go around and make sure they're paying attention and not stop the whole lesson, just to make sure that other kids are paying attention. It's kind of nice that she doesn't have to stop the lesson. Okay, just a couple more. Everyone in our class is at a different stage. So if you have more trouble with reading, you can get more one-on-one time. And if you're advanced, you can go ahead. We've done a lot of different projects that we couldn't have done with just our regular teacher. We needed 2 grown-ups. It's fun. If there's only one teacher, it seems a lot more wild, but when there's 2, it seems more controlled. So let's talk about some strategies for co-teaching. How do we collaborate so that we can foster achievement for all of our students, those with disabilities, those without? So these are some pictures from some local elementary schools in Brea and Fullerton, California. So what are some structures for working together in the same classroom? So both teachers can teach the whole group, and this is team teaching, called team teaching. You can also have where one teacher is the lead, and then the other one is the support teacher. And that person focuses on individuals or groups of students. So there's a couple different models that have one teacher being the lead and the other being the support by focusing on a smaller group or an individual. And those are teaching versus assisting and teaching observing, also differentiated teaching, and also supplemental teaching. And then parallel teaching and station teaching are 2 co-teaching strategies where both teachers lead separate lessons, reducing the teacher-student ratio. So one teach, one observe. One teacher is going to have the primary instructional responsibility, while the other one gathers specific observational information on students or on the instructing teacher. So this could be an example of somebody that's actually looking at behaviors. So they're trying to analyze specific behaviors, record those behaviors, how frequently they're occurring, when they're occurring, what was the stimuli that forced that behavior to happen. And this observation can give a lot of really great data to the teachers so that they can work with that student on either preventing that stimuli from happening or trying to reduce those behaviors. So the one teach, one observe has a predetermined purpose. One teach, one assist. So one teacher has the primary responsibility for teaching, while the other one circulates the room. And the other one is providing one-to-one assistance for anyone who needs it. This is again back to the students saying they all got that one-on-one support. This is unobtrusive. They're just walking around and redirecting, prompting, answering quick questions, guiding students, any student with or without a disability. So they're clarifying for individuals or small groups. They're facilitating materials, so they're making sure everyone has what they need, making sure transitions are smooth so people know where to go, what to do. They're monitoring and supporting behaviors as they come up. They're correcting work and catching errors. The assisting teacher is still teaching. This person is still going around. They're just teaching individuals or small groups. So it's still a very valued collaborative teaching position. So if you look at the teach assist, you have one teacher leading the lesson while the other helps the individual students. So the teacher in front of the room is asking 6 times 8 is greater than or less than 45, and the class is answering, but the teacher that's in the bottom right-hand corner of our current screen is showing one student because that particular student is struggling. Talk about station teaching. So station teaching is when teachers divide the content and the students, and each then teaches the content to one group and subsequently repeats the instruction for the other group. Sometimes there's another station for independent work or computer work. So you might see this where a class is broken up into 3 or 4 groups. So you could have one group is going to be taught by one teacher, and then that teacher is going to reteach that same content to each different group that travels around the classroom. So there might be 4 groups of 7 students or 4 groups of 8 students, and one teacher is teaching one bit of content, the other teacher is teaching another bit of content. Then the students are reinforcing that learning as independent work with some activities or on the computers. So you can see just this one has 3 different groups, and it can show you a teacher-led group, an independent group, and then a second teacher-led group. This is actually a picture of a teacher who is supporting as the teacher in the front teaches, and then this teacher is going to then teach at a different station. So one teacher is actually teaching the content, and the other teacher is actually teaching the activity that goes along with the content. These are actually our real student teachers, which is kind of fun to see their faces. Okay, parallel teaching. This is when both teachers teach the same information, but they divide up the class and they do the teaching at the exact same time. So they're going to be teaching the same content, most likely, but they're just going to teach it to smaller groups. And sometimes this works really well because you might have some students that might need additional time or additional focus from just one teacher. And so this teaching really benefits students. So this is showing that at a school in Brea, you can see that 100% of students that are in special ed are included in the general ed classroom. And the general education 5th grade teacher is actually teaching her group. And then you can see the special day class teacher is teaching her group on using a whiteboard on the other half of the classroom. Okay, supplemental team teaching is when one teacher works with students at their expected grade level, while the other teacher works with those students who need the information and or materials extended or remediated. So supplemental is great when you have some students that need a little bit of extra support with having differentiated instruction that's lower level than expected grade level. Alternative teaching is when one teacher works with a small group that's needing reteaching while the other teacher is providing enrichment or alternative activities for the rest of the class. And this can be used pre-teaching the lesson or as enrichment for those students that are high achieving or students that need it reinforced, as well as assessment times. Okay, alternative or differentiated groups. So okay, now you've got it, so let's go on, one teacher says. And the other teacher's like, let's do this again. I'm going to teach you this concept again. Let's go over it so that we can reteach or extend the concept and make sure that this group of students understands clearly and they can be successful before going on. So here's two teachers that you have. One is teaching the full group, and then one is going to teach the small group with a small group math lesson. Okay, team teaching is that both teachers are delivering the same instruction together at the same time. So they're standing up in front of the room together. So one is modeling while the other speaks. And we do this a lot in conferences or in our university classes when we're face-to-face, that we're able to have one person demonstrate while the other person explains, and they can even role play and teach that content. So they take turns delivering instruction. One person is not more dominant than another. They both get to share their expertise. So you can see that they're standing together in front of the class. One person might be presenting it visually and the other person is presenting it orally. So these are two teachers that work together to plan lessons based on social studies. And they taught writing to whole and small groups, and they designed the rubric together. They graded the final reports together. They did everything together. I still know these two teachers, how funny. So cool. So you can see them standing together doing their co-teaching, but their team teaching, talking about their grading procedures. So what are some words of wisdom that we have for you today? We want you to agree to be equal partners, that you should proceed slowly in designing, implementing, and evaluating the co-teaching process. Make sure to plan ways to talk out those disagreements or things that kind of bug you in advance. Be open about your successes and failures and your plan to improve. Take the time to plan and reflect. So discuss your views on teaching and learning, and especially your views on children with disabilities. How are you best going to support them? Discuss behavior management and other practices so you can come to an agreement on how you're going to work together in the classroom. And then let parents know about what you're doing and the benefits of co-teaching, how it benefits students with and without disabilities. I think one of the most important things is, as your equal partners and as you're planning and reflecting, just to make sure that your processes and your procedures are the same, that you're on the same page in how you plan to organize the content and how you want to proceed with it. So good communication is really important in co-teaching. And of course, have a lot of fun. That's most important. So with that, I conclude our session together, and I welcome your input, and feel free to email me if you have any questions at all about co-teaching. And I really believe that in the College of Education at Cal State Fullerton, we have a lot of really good examples of co-teaching, and we really would like for you to try it. If you're able to get into a classroom and you're able to support your students, this is a really great way of making sure that all students have alternative ways of getting the content and making sure that they're focused and that they get the attention that they need. So thank you so much for being a part of today, and I wish you much luck in your co-teaching adventures. Have a great day.